And now, NC Sports correspondent Nick Douglas will be linking up with us in the studio for an all-new Sailor Girl adventure. Hi Nick, welcome back to NC Sports.
Hi Andy, thank you so much for having me.
Of course, we have so much we want to hear from you, but let's start off with the Extreme Sailing Series down in Cardiff, and Kiel is in full swing in Germany, but let's take it from the top. What's your take on the new ESS flying season on the GC32s? Who do you think is going to take home the win in Cardiff?
Oh, it's a hard one, I have to say. There's only been 2 events so far on the new GC32 circuit. I mean, everything's going foiling, so it's got to be better, doesn't it? But I know that Oman Air are definitely off to a really quick start, and they're skippered by Morgan Larson, who took out the Extreme Sailing Series in 2014, but then transferred over to the GC32. So he's had a season under his belt. But I don't think you can discount the new team, China 1, that's skippered by Taylor Canfield. He's having a ripping season on the M32s, that's for sure. Yeah. And I have to say, Cardiff was a fantastic event last year. It's known for its tight racetracks, and I know that Red Bull really was a crowd favourite on the final day of racing, skippered by Jason Waterhouse, who's in Rio training now for the upcoming games. He managed to win one of the races on the final day, even with a capsize, which was just fantastic. Great acting.
And let's talk a little bit about Kiel. I mean, it's an annual classic. You've had your fair share of success there. But this is the real last event before Rio, so it's a really significant one, isn't it?
It is a really significant one, and Kiel Wash is just huge. There's 42 classes involved with the event, not just the Olympic classes. And I do know that a number of the German sailors that are heading to Rio, as well as Scandinavian teams, are using it as their final warm-up, which is great to see. A lot of other teams, the British and the Australians and the US, are already in Rio and training, because that event starts in about 6 weeks. It's getting exciting.
Yeah, really.
5th of August, I believe, the Olympics starts, which is just fantastic. Myself, Kiel, very fond memories. 2009, managed to take out the first women's match racing event there. There were 34 teams as we were right at the start of the 2012 cycle. So, yeah, absolutely massive event, not just in Olympic sport, that's for sure.
Well, it's so fantastic to have you linking up with us, Nick. Such a really experienced sailor. So, and I also understand that you've been covering many very important events down under in Australia. So tell us a little bit about those.
Oh, most definitely. It's an interesting time in Australia because it is winter for us down here. So we have a lot of events that head north. The VX1 Midwinter Nationals was the most recent event that I was on the ground for, the biggest fleet that we've seen so far in Australia in this new and exciting one design class. It is a sports boat, a keel boat, but I think we can almost call it a dinghy because there's plenty of capsizes in action, and Brett Whitbread managed to walk away with that title. He was very dominant, which was fantastic to see. And I was also in Royal Geelong Yacht Club for their presentation night ahead of being an ambassador for the Festival of Sails, which is a huge event here in Australia, which takes place on Australia Day, which is sort of, I guess, our Federation Day as such, which is in January, which will be awesome.
And speaking of Australia, you guys have managed to rank up 26 medals at the Sailing World Cup this season. I mean, it's pretty impressive, second overall, next to Britain. What's your assessment of the team now going into Rio?
The Australian sailing team are in a huge wave of momentum, essentially, leading into Rio. We've got Jason Waterhouse and Lisa Darmanin, who are going exceptionally well in the NACRA 17. Matt Belcher and Will Ryan have been an absolute dominant force in the 470, though they did have a third, I believe, in the recent Europeans. So they've got plenty to work on leading into the games. And I know that the Australians are looking to try and beat their tally from last time, which is a big task to undertake, given that it was our most successful Olympics, and sailing won more gold medals for Australia than any other sport, which is huge. But that said, I know that the British and also the Americans will be bringing it hard, as will the Dutch and also the Belgian in a number of other classes. It's difficult to say what will happen because Rio conditions are looking exceptionally tricky and light, which is quite different to a lot of the other World Cup events that we've seen this season. So it's exciting.
Yeah, lots of competition to come. And speaking of competition, there will of course also be a big battle between the 49ers, between Outridge and Peter Burling. From the Olympics to the America's Cup, these two have always been heads on.
Yeah, I think that everybody loves seeing these two go head to head. Pete Burling is still leading the America's Cup World Series, so he's got that edge over Nath Outridge, but Nath did manage to take Artemis Racing to a win in the most recent event in Chicago. So you never know what will happen there either. I would have to say, though, that Pete Burling is probably the favourite going into the Olympics in the 49er class, as much as I hate to say that as an Aussie. I mean, himself and Blair Tuke, I think, are undefeated in 20 events in the 49er so far. It may even be more. I can't recall off the top of my head, but it's an unbelievable feat. But I hope that we see those two take out gold and silver of being a Southern Hemisphere junkie.
Absolutely. And Nick, my last question for you is, Rio's just around the corner. What are the sailors saying about the Maria de Gloria racecourse at the moment? I hear they did have a big cleanup, but is the health and safety concern still there?
I know that the health and safety in Rio has been something that's been top of mind. In water pollution, unfortunately, is becoming a bigger issue for sailors around the world. I mean, it's something that we've seen in a number of places. Even in Qingdao in 2008, it wasn't necessarily pollution, but there was weed on the course. So it's always something that we have to deal with, I think. I think what's more concerning for me is the fact that Liesl Tesch, who was a gold medalist in the Paralympic Games in the Scud class for Australia, she was actually attacked this morning in Rio, and she had her bike stolen from her, which is concerning. She was with a friend as well, and there were bystanders that just watched the entire event happen. So I think that's even a concern in Rio, and I know that they're now going to up the security for the Olympians in a number of areas, but I mean, there's a little bit of unrest and now uncertainty amongst the athletes in terms of safety. So on the land as well as on the water.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, safety obviously comes first, and we really wish all the sailors going to the Rio Olympic Games the very best of luck and to be safe. Nick, thank you so much for hanging out with us. We really look forward to catching up with you again for some more of your stories and more of your reports. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Hopefully I can touch base with you when I'm in Cowes very, very soon.
Definitely. Bye-bye. Till then.